Welcome to the SaaS Backwards Podcast, where we reverse engineer the success of fast-growing SaaS firms and explore strategies CMOs and CEOs are using to drive their businesses forward.
Welcome to SaaS Backwards, a podcast that helps SaaS CMOs and CEOs to accelerate growth and enhance profitability. We take a look at what's working for growing SaaS companies, leadership decision-making, and what did and didn't work and why. Our guest today is Latni Konen, CMO of Syxsense. Hey, Latni, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
We're really happy to have you as our guest today. Before we dig into topics for the podcast, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and Syxsense, please?
Sure. So I'm Latni Konen, Chief Market Officer at Syxsense. I've been at Syxsense as the CMO about 3 years now. So it's been a pretty exciting journey. Part of that was actually publishing a book that came out about a year ago called No Forms, No Spam, No Cold Calls, the next generation of sales and marketing. Syxsense, we are a leading account-based marketing platform. What we do essentially is we allow you to uncover your dark funnels. If you think about all of the insights, all of the rich data that you can't get your hands on because either buyers are researching anonymously, they're on your site or other sites, or maybe it's your own data, but you just don't have a good way to really mine that data and understand your buying journey. So we do that for you. We provide rich insights into your buying journey and then take action on those insights. So we tell you, hey, this is the best channel to market through. These are the best ads to serve.
Thank you. So I think we'll go right off the script out of the gate here and talk about why you advocate CMOs calling it the Chief Market Officer.
Sure. So one of the things I do is I've got a couple of different communities that I run. And one of them is a group of, I would say, the top B2B CMOs out there, all women. And we get together every year. We do a study and we talk about the state of marketing. And one of the sessions that we ran was, is the chief marketing role a black hole? Meaning, it's hard to sometimes prove the value of when you think about yourself as a chief marketing officer, because the ing represents activities. It represents likes. It represents clicks. It represents blog posts. It's all of the ing that supports market. And so we had this conversation and really started what I think is a little bit of a movement to say, well, how come every other title in the C-suite is about owning their function? It's about being the chief sales officer or the chief finance officer. Chief finance officer doesn't rock into the board meeting and talk about how we closed the books, right? Or how many times they forecasted or reforecasted. And so I'm not saying a lot of CMOs out there do that. I think as a function, we've come a long way, but there is still a ways to go. And I think if you start to think about yourself as owning the seat at the table that represents the market, and you start to every single day wake up with, I am the chief market officer. I own this market. All of a sudden, the value of your function will tremendously grow. Why? Well, think about what it takes to have a successful company. Yes, you need a product. Yes, you need to be able to sell and service that product. But unless you have a market, you don't have a company. And so really elevating that role to say, what does the market need? How do we position ourselves uniquely in this market? What's the feedback loop to product to make sure we're building the right things that the market needs is absolutely critical. And when I start to dissect company after company and their go-to-market strategy, one of the quickest places that I look and I see companies have fallen down is around market. Specifically, do they understand their ideal customer profile? Target addressable market is fun. It's fun to be able to say, we can sell to 600,000 B2B companies. But guess what? That doesn't mean we should. And that doesn't mean now is the right time. And so really strategically thinking through not just your total addressable market, your total addressable in market. And within that, what does an ideal customer for you look like? What's the profile of them? Are they in market? That's highly strategic, but critical to a successful go-to-market motion. And that's one of the things that I think chief market officers start to own and start to think about is really how do we call insights to be able to point our precious resources at the ideal customers for us.
That's a phenomenon we see a lot in our clients and prospects, this almost fast food orientation to marketing services. I'll have 3 blog posts and an ebook, please. It just devalues the function to the point that it's kind of no wonder marketing ends up subjugated to sales, or even I've seen the CFO running marketing. I think it's really important, especially for new marketing leaders, establishing the ground rules even before you get in the job, that the marketing function has this strategic role to shape the future of the company. I think is an important expectation to set even before you take the job.
You have to think like an investor to some degree. And investors eventually will look at your leadership team. They will eventually look at your product and if it's differentiated and what your competitive mode is. But the first question that they ask themselves is this a good category? Is this a good market? Do we believe that this is a market and a category that people are going to spend on? And then they say, okay, does this have problem market fit? And so starting to think like that, it's like, wow, because you just mentioned, okay, the short order cook syndrome, that we need an ebook or this or that. Well, the reality is, if you're pointing the ebook or the webinar or the blog or the field, whatever it is, if it's pointed at a good market, the right market, and you have problem market fit and you can identify that, it doesn't matter. It makes it really hard to screw up, right? It doesn't matter if you write an ebook or a blog or you do a webinar, at least you're pointed in the right direction. That just has to be, I think, the North Star for the CMO. And you don't do it in a vacuum, of course. You got to work cross-functionally. But I was guest teaching at Northwestern, a marketing class. And, all these bright-eyed and bushy-tailed marketers, and they said, well, we're going to go out and interview. What should we ask? And I said, you ask everybody you interview with if they know their ideal customer profile and ask them to describe it. And I said, if you can't get a straight answer, run, because you just won't be successful.
So already we have a few insights that I think are worth recapping here. One is taking the verb out of the job title. And that seems like it's sort of a wave of the hand, but it's more like prestidigitation. I think it's a magic trick to get the senior leadership team that you would become part of to recognize the 3 or 4 main functions of the CMO and the marketing group. And then all the way down to, if you're going to approach a firm, maybe if you're going to be the marketing leader, not having solid ICP information is really good, right? That would be a good opportunity, a thing to fix.
That would definitely be a thing to fix. I would say, though, when I look at CMOs who survive and thrive, there are a lot of factors, but the CEO is obviously a huge one. And so I think when you're interviewing, press for red flags. And it's really interesting. I had a CMO who was interviewing and she said, well, the CEO kept saying that he just wants demand gen. And I said, yeah, of course, I'll get him leads and, we'll do demand gen. But I said, don't you think we need to understand our strategy and, our market? And he said, yeah, but it's kind of a chicken and an egg thing. It's not a chicken and an egg thing. It's not like, oh, yeah, we'll get to that when we get to it. If you don't have that first, you will never be able to set up a successful, highly functioning, efficient go-to-market engine. You can go and create a lot of bogus leads. Any monkey can go and create a bunch of bogus leads. That's easy. You want me to help you double at an industry-leading CAC, then we're going to need to understand the market.
So I think that's a great segue. That's the first time monkey's been mentioned in the context of marketing in the podcast. But I think we should talk about the case against the form fill, MQLs. It's almost calling BS on the whole inbound movement in a way. And let's try and dig in on the case against the form fill and these, what I really have come to believe are bogus measures for marketing leaders. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Okay, so
I realize I've just asked you to explain the universe.
No, you haven't. I feel there are so many issues with an MQL, and there's always the it depends, and can you do it right, and can it be a good metric? Perhaps. However, the issues are, and I'll take them one by one. The first issue with an MQL is it's focused on a lead or a contact. A lead, by definition, is a contact, one contact. And we know, depending on whose research you look at, it's anywhere from 7 to 15 people on a typical B2B buying team. Okay, if you're selling a super highly transactional thing, maybe that doesn't apply. But if you are in B2B where you do have a buying team, just getting a lead or a contact could be an indication of a purchase, but it could also not be an indication of a purchase at all. And I think what it does is it sets sales up to fail. And when you go back and inspect deals, you will find that when you win a deal, it's probably because you multi-threaded. You had multiple quote unquote leads engaged. When you lost, you probably were single-threaded. You had one lead or contact engaged. And what happens is the farther along through the cycle you get, the harder it is to multi-thread because people sort of attach to you and want to almost box you out. The easiest time to multi-thread is super early. If marketing is just measuring themselves on one lead or contact and throwing it over the wall, they're setting sales up to fail. You really have to be thinking about how do I qualify accounts and how do I make sure that from the very get-go, marketing's job is to multi-thread the account.
So should we rename these form fillers something besides an MQL? Because I mean, that's what everybody wants to do, right? They want to be able to say, hey, I generated 224 MQLs with, blah, blah revenue potential.
If you want to continue to call it a marketing qualified lead, that's fine, but it may not be an indication of purchase. And I think the goals need to not be focused on an MQL. It needs to be focused on qualifying an overall account. And there needs to be a clear definition of working account and working an account involving working at least 2 to 3 key personas. So for us, the right one contact showing interest could be an indicator depending on the type of activity that they're doing. But that has to trigger broader outreach beyond just that lead or contact. So you have to set up a process that multi-threads an account. What too often will happen is marketing passes the lead, it has the email, sales reaches out to just that. And then again, you've sort of set yourself up for single threading. Another big problem is a lot of times the enemy is manual scoring because it's sort of like auditing yourself. Marketing sets up a point system to deem this many points, that many minutes, this, that, or the other. And all of a sudden that leads to something being qualified.
There's this fakery around trying to make it science.
Exactly. And the points can be anything I want it to be. So if I need more MQLs, I can say, okay, I'm going to deem G2 research an MQL. I can shove whatever I want in there. And to me, that's a problem. I'm really big on using AI that can be back tested to say, no, statistically, we know that these personas, these type of accounts, this level of research, this recency and frequency of engagement, this is what deems an account qualified for sales to work. It's just math. And so we use predictive analytics to be able to do that, which sets us free from a lot of the nonsense. Okay, my third big issue is ideally, there's some level of sophistication and marketing is at least applying some sort of fit model. Ideally, there's some sort of fit score. It's funny. We have 2 or 3 salespeople that have come to 6th Sense from marketing automation world where everything was inbound and marketing said, 90% of the revenue is inbound. We're the kings and queens of inbound. And they said, I had to do all my own outbound prospecting because the stuff that came inbound was either a totally bogus company or an intern or a student. Again, you want to make sure that you're qualifying for fit for the account, but also the persona fit to make sure that it's actually legitimately a positive signal. And then we again look at, from a predictive perspective, we look at recency, frequency, and then timing to be able to statistically prove this account's a good fit, this persona's a good fit, what they're doing is a positive indicator, and we know exactly where they are in their journey, which allows us to start to dictate the right action to take across sales and marketing. Then the last problem with the MQL is the easiest way to gather MQLs is to put up a bunch of forms on your content. And again, we've set ourselves up to measure these bogus MQLs. So we're so excited that we got all these emails. We collected all these emails from all these people. So now we can go and email them and nurture them. Well, if you take 2 steps back and you think about yourself as a consumer and you think about ultimately, again, if you're a chief market officer, what are you trying to do? You're trying to help people understand. You want people to learn from you. You want to create a category. You want to create a movement. You want to help people get multiple personas on the buying team engaged. These are all chief market officer behavior type things. And putting that form up literally limits doing all of that, which to me makes no sense. I want to be able to do my research and say, yes, I looked at all these different solutions. Here's why. Here's the differentiation with this, blah, 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 blah. Just like you would want to too. We prevent that, which to me is just absolutely ridiculous.
I think not only do we prevent it, but then we create clickbait, right? Because now the optimization is on the form fill, not on the value transfer. It's just sort of an unholy bit of business the more you dig into it.
It creates all of these byproducts that are not positive. Typically, when you peg your function and your value around MQLs, it's hard to get away from those byproducts in the long run. And I don't think that marketing up for the value that we actually can deliver.
So it creates resistance to consuming the content too. And you guys talk about the dark funnel, which sounds really ominous. Could you just talk a little about what you guys mean by a dark funnel and how that impacts decision-making at 6sense and how you advise your clients?
Sure. I mean, I think that we all know inherently that buyers are going to go out and do a ton of research. Few will fill out the form, but most won't. And we also know that it's not just one persona, which I talked about earlier, it's multiple. And we also know that over time, because everyone's doing content marketing, everyone's doing digital advertising, everyone's got an outbound motion, our buyers are bombarded. So the combination of all of those things, a lot of anonymous research across a ton of members of the buying committee, and needing more and more content and more, touches to draw them out, creates a growing dark funnel, which is where all of this great activity is happening, where buyers are in market for what you do. Ideal customers for you to sell to are in market for what you do, and you have no idea. And we've all had this, right? Where it's like, how did our competitor close that deal? We didn't even get invited. We didn't even have a seat at that table. How is this competitor getting all these deals that we never even saw? And so the dark funnel is all of the ideal customers that are looking for a solution just like yours, are potentially buying solutions just like yours, and you cannot reach them. You're not getting them to your website. You're not seeing their patterns. You're not engaging with that buying team. You're never going to eradicate your entire dark funnel. But the more and more you start to shine a light on that, gosh, that changes your paradigm. That changes from waiting for someone to find you and fill out a form to being able to take control of predictability and revenue generation. So I think it's a much more controllable, sustainable approach than clickbait forms, because to some degree, that's casting a big net and waiting for things to land in your net versus going out and saying, that is my ideal fish. That's the shift that we see happening when you have the right technology that allows you to uncover your dark funnel and then proactively go after demand. And, we've been trying. We've all got a CRM, all got a marketing automation solution. But if you ask any sales or marketing professional if they have confidence in their CRM or map data, only 13% have confidence. It gets old fast. And so what you want is this radar that's always out. We call it Six Signal, which is a key product of ours that's always out looking for accounts and contacts that are in market for what you do.
So the implication here is that if we want people to consume our content and consider us and believe us a potentially good fit for their business requirements, we need to make it as friction-free as possible to do just that, right? We have to make content consumption as easy as possible and only gate the bare necessities, like I'd like a demo or I want to attend an event.
Exactly. And what I'm working on now is really thinking through and clarifying the role of a marketing leader. And I've come to three big buckets. One is market. The second is experience. And because I think that brand ultimately is experience. You can have amazing brand values. You can have amazing vision. You can invest a lot in telling people what your brand means. But ultimately, your brand is going to be how people experience your company. And every single second of every day, people are having interactions with your company. There's all these little moments, and they're either positive or negative. And so I think about my role as a big part of CMO is how do I make the experience amazing? And you use the word frictionless. I love that. Frictionless, relevant, engaging across every encounter with us needs to represent something and is an opportunity to either create brand equity or detract. And that's another reason why I really struggle with gating content, and because I just think it's a poor experience.
And then experience really matters, right? In the decision making. It's risen in importance in recent years.
Exactly, especially in B2B. And then the last pillar is around optimizing revenue. That's coming back to the MQL pitfalls. Too often I hear CMOs complaining that they're generating all this demand and it's just not closing and they can't go close deals. So it's not their problem. And to me, it is their problem. Like, we have to be maniacally focused on predictable pipeline, the sales velocity formula, and then net retentions. Those are the economics of a SaaS-based business. And things like a frictionless experience, things like content, things like product marketing are absolutely critical to win rate and to conversions. And so it's a little bit surprising to me that CMOs don't feel like that's in their purview to enable an impact. You know, my number one priority last year was to increase our win rates by 50%. Now, I didn't do it alone. I did it with the sales enablement team. I did it with our CRO. I did it with customer success. I think of the 3 pillars of being a great CMO as market, brand/experience, and then optimizing revenue.
Excellent. Let's dig in a little bit on if I'm going to give up my form fills and my MQLs, I'm letting go of my teddy bear. How do I get to that buyer intent, and how do we start to use that?
So intent data, and it's kind of like the new ABM that gets thrown out a lot. I'm just going to walk through how I think about intent. The first category of intent is what I call first-party engagement. This means they're on your website. They're chatting with your chatbot. They're consuming your content. They're maybe going to your webinars, right? And so they're engaging with your brand on your first-party properties. Now, some of this is anonymous. And so you want to be able to de-anonymize first-party intent. So whether they fill out a form or not, you still know that they were on your website and the content they consumed. Then second party is, think about a website that you control, but it's not your website, like G2. So there is a site on G2 all about 6sense that, you know, we've provided the content for, we've explained ourselves, but we don't run that site. So I want to know if someone's researching all about 6sense, gosh, that seems like something I would want to know and be able to understand. And there's a bunch of different kind of review type sites like that out there. Third party is they're more broadly on B2B type websites, influencer websites, and they're consuming content either about you, about your competitors, about maybe things that would indicate that they have a problem. And so in an ideal world, you want to be able to actually have all of those sources of intent. And then what you want to be able to do is have a tech stack that is smart enough to actually start to decode and see patterns to basically tell you what that intent means.
And is that where 6sense comes in?
First of all, when it comes to first-party engagement, this 6Signal product that I alluded to earlier basically can help you understand first-party engagement better than anybody else in the market. So we have a very, very high match rate, which is the ability to match essentially a signal to an account. So you don't need the form because you know this is the account, this is what they were consuming. The other thing we do is we bring in signals from like a G2 or a TrustRadius and allow you to see that and use that in your programs. So you have that 360-degree view. And then the last thing we do is we have our own proprietary and third-party intent network. So we provide intent data, but we also partner with a company called Bombora, which is another great source of intent. So our goal at 6sense is to A, provide great data, but B, partner with other data providers to make sure that you have the most robust coverage of your dark funnel. Again, you're never going to be able to uncover every single part of it, but the more we can bring to our clients to help them uncover the dark funnel, the better. And then make sense of it. The making sense of it is critical. You know, I mean, just because you have tons of data doesn't mean you know what to do with it. And so that's where we apply predictive analytics and AI to be able to actually help you understand, oh, this is what this means. This means I should fire off ads to this account because that's where they are in their journey. Oh, wow, this account is super hot. We need to call, you know, all the key personas on a buying team for this other account.
I used to call ABM sort of wish list marketing. So this sounds like we can get rid of hope and wish and actually find people that are in market and really fine tune our approach to the marketplace.
Exactly. We're trying to get rid of hope and wish.
So we have a marketing leader, we have a chief market officer, but tell me what the likely objections are that the CMO is going to run into in terms of giving up the MQL, really looking at intent as the way to drive the relationship between marketing and sales.
So I think the first challenge is you have to help people understand that less is more. Because again, back to the original thing about MQLs, like I can gather hundreds of thousands of MQLs and pass them over. And sometimes that feels really good. And so the first challenge is helping people understand that we might actually have less quote unquote leads, but they're going to be higher quality. And that's a hurdle that you have to get over. And what I encourage people to do is like a cohort analysis. And so basically take qualified accounts versus like typical leads and then show ASPs, win rates, and cycle times between the two. And actually, we've done this. We've actually looked at like 500 quarters of data. And what we find is every single time it's astronomically better when you're working a qualified account in terms of 2 times better ASPs, 20% better cycle times, and anywhere from 10 to 20% better conversions. And so when you start to look at an overall go-to-market plan, right, we've got to book $50 million of business in this quarter. Okay, let's work backwards, right? And we all know how to do the work backwards plan. When you start to do that work backwards plan and you start to say, okay, when we increase ASPs, when we increase cycle times, when we increase win rates, even by fractional amounts, the overall result on the business is tremendous. I often ask people the most efficient way to double revenue. Answer A, double leads. Answer B, increase ASPs, win rates, and cycle times. The correct answer is B.
Also say hire more salespeople.
Yeah, and that's expensive. As marketers, we need to think about sales as our most expensive channel, most precious channel, effective. And so how do we optimize their time? You wouldn't send a direct mail package with a bottle of Dom Perignon to every single potential client, would you? You would never have a budget to do that. You got to think about the sales team as the Dom Perignon and how are you optimizing their time? That's a really, really important concept. And if you sit down with the head of sales and start to talk through it, they get it. And then together, you can even do things like we even optimize our territories and our target account list together so that everybody has a great chance of hitting their number.
That's a big one right there.
Yeah. The second hurdle is really around, and I talked about this earlier, multi-threading. If I'm used to getting past someone's email and I just go, quote unquote, email the hell out of them and call it a lead worked, and I come in and I say, oh, no, that's going to take some major change management to say, now I'm going to pass you an account. And I'm going to fill out the account with 4 people that you've got to call. And you also have to do social touches. You got to get meetings with all of these different various stakeholders. And then the third one is probably more just what's on your dashboard. And so adjusting your dashboard and your vernacular to be talking about predictable pipeline and pipeline quotas and conversions and ASPs versus just leads. So just updating your metrics accordingly.
So is there implication on my tech stack as a marketer here?
Yeah, of course. That's why 6sense is, I think, doing so well. There's a pretty significant impact on the tech stack. And actually what's interesting is we just went through our Series D very successfully because what we're seeing is a bunch of pretty innovative technology coming out that addresses the revenue team, not sales, not marketing, but overall rev tech, which is great. There's a lot of innovative new platforms that are addressing all the challenges I just talked about, but that technology needs a foundational platform. And that's really where 6sense comes in. You need a ton of data, and that data today is in a lot of silos. And so step one is you got to be able to bring all that data together in a unified format so you have a consistent view of accounts and contacts. Step two is, okay, great. You've gotten your data out of silos and now, as a revenue team, you have unified data, but what does any of it mean? And that's where the predictions and the AI comes in to be able to really give you account fit, persona fit. Are you doing the right level of activity to break through to this account? All kinds of different predictive models then get applied for sales, marketing, and customer success to really optimize performance. And then part 3 is great that you have a chat bot great that you have a sales engagement platform. Great that you have a direct gifting platform. You got all these different execution channels. Well, they're in silos too. So the next thing that we do, the last part, is bringing the decisioning together and being able to trigger orchestration and have deep integrations to things like chat, direct mail, sales engagement, marketing automation, so that at the foundation of your RevTech stack, you have data, insights, and decisioning to orchestrate all the channels. Sales, marketing, and customer success are much more unified because you got one system of record for insights, orchestration, and decisioning.
That's awesome. My experience doing this for quite some time is that marketing people often, to me, look like 8-year-olds playing soccer. Everybody runs to the ball. I think we can say with good assurance that a lot of people are going to be running toward intent data and predictive AI. Is this going to devalue this way of doing business?
You mean because everyone will do it and it won't be differentiated?
Yeah. If everybody's using intent data, does it devalue the whole idea? Or does it serve the buyers because they're going to be hearing from the right people at the right time?
I think what's starting to happen is if you're not using it, you're at a competitive disadvantage. We're getting to that tipping point. So then we all have this quote unquote competitive advantage. It becomes, to some degree, back to what great marketing is about. It's like, how do you use this competitive advantage to really connect with your audience? What does your creative look like? Are you investing in not clickbait, but great content? Does it potentially level the playing field? Maybe, but I think we're going to see an up leveling overall. And hopefully people will double down on that second category of what I described as experience and differentiate that way.
I think that's really beautiful place to land on, is that you need to do a great job with this new way of understanding the market and the potential customers who are in it. So you need to do a great job with this new technology, this new capability to really make it all happen. And it seems like solutions like 6sense allow us to start to do all that. So that's very cool.
That's right.
I want to say thanks so much. Our guest today was Latne Conant of 6sense. Latne, how can people reach you if they'd like to dig in with you?
I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so feel free to hit me there. Also, always happy to get people copies of the book. So, let me know if you'd like a copy of the book. Also, check out 6sense.com. That's
great. Actually, I think Claudia said we might have a special link for our listeners to request a free copy of the book. So,
perfect.
And I highly endorse it. It's a great read. Thanks, everyone, for listening to this episode of SaaS Backwards. My name, again, is Ken Lempit. I'm president of Austin Lawrence. And if you'd like to reach me, I'm kl@austinlawrence.com. We'll see you on the next episode of SaaS Backwards.
Thanks for listening to the SaaS Backwards podcast, brought to you by Austin Lawrence Group. We're a growth marketing agency that helps SaaS firms reduce churn, accelerate sales, and generate demand. Learn more about us at www.austinlawrence.com. You can email Ken Lempit at kl@austinlawrence.com about any SaaS marketing or customer retention subject. We hope you'll subscribe, and thanks again for listening.